Hello, I'm Alex Silva. I'm here in Hansa Studios at the moment preparing a new album with a great Latvian band called Pradevetra, and we're actually here to talk about Kemper amps and how I've been using them in the last year or so, especially with Herbert Grönemeyer, who is an artist I work very closely with for quite some time now, and we're about to prepare for the release of his new album, Dauernd Jetzt. And yeah, we're all very excited at the moment to see what the public think. So yeah, we started the album, I think it was almost to the day, exactly 1 year to make this album, which actually is quite quick. In respect to the previous albums we've done, we've taken longer. And typically it starts always in the same way. Herbert comes to the studio with pieces of ideas, and mainly on piano or on a guitar. And then together, Herbert and me work very closely for probably for six or 7 months, developing these songs, making demos, you know, playing instruments, programming, bringing the songs to life a little bit, and then from that point on, once we feel happy with the directions of the songs and that the mood of it is right, we then move out into other studios or even other locations which somehow can bring some inspiration to the project, and yeah, try to step up the songs even further, bring them to another level. Quite often the case is after all these processes, we take elements of the initial demos and then these later recordings and combine them to end up with a finished article. In this particular case, I think we went to Sweden, to RMV Studios, which is a beautiful studio in Skeppsholm, right in the middle of Stockholm. Is a small island, and Benny from ABBA has created this fantastic studio with his son, I think. And so there again we continued actually the demoing process, Herbert and me, along this time with Michael Ilbert, who would help us to bring our demos to a higher level. So we did that in Stockholm, and then several months later we went to La Fabrique Studios in the south of France, which again is very beautiful, rustic kind of French grand farmhouse in a way, with beautiful grounds, with an amazing control room. And there we did the initial recordings with the band for a few weeks, and then came back to our studio, worked on what we did there, editing and taking elements and mixing it with our elements, and then did a further session back in RMV in Sweden, doing small overdubs, again always developing slightly more and more, and then a final session here in Hansa Studios, which would have been round about September gone, or August maybe. Some final drum overdubs, and then final post-production and editing, and then into the mix. Well, I first got to know about Kemper when I was working with the Manic Street Preachers. That is a British rock band, and they had one in their control room, never having switched it on. And I was just amazed with the look of this thing, and I thought, wow, it looks incredibly complex. I thought, having now used it, I'm more than anything so impressed with the level of thought that's gone into it, that it's can look complicated at first, but it's so simple to use. I never looked in the manual and never needed to do that. So I then, after having got one and started to work with it, I then called James, who's the guitarist of the Manics, and told him he has to learn how to use this because it's such a great piece of kit. So yeah, we slowly started to integrate it into our setup. I was never happy with these kind of guitar emulations up until now, because they always classically, you know, especially on the driven sounds, can be quite brittle. Somehow not quite living in the music like a real amp would. But I got to say, I thought the Kemper was close enough to the real thing to for it not to be an issue. You know, and with all these technologies, also as a producer, when you're working with artists, you're always, you know, integrating all styles and types of equipment and digital and analog, and finding the right hybrid. And I just got to say the Kemper sat in there perfectly, and you know, especially with the added advantage of them being able to sample real cabs. So when you're then recording, like we were in La Fabrique, every guitar take we did, we could then analyze the guitar, take a snapshot, and then at any time we could, back in our room, if we wanted to do a little fix or a drop-in, you know, rather than have to try to recreate something which you maybe can't, because even if you've got an SM57 and a Sennheiser 421, it might be slightly different from the one you actually used. So in this way, you can really drop in and go quickly, you know, which of course nowadays is so important, to be able to turn around things very quickly, you know. So. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, from the demo stage, it was the way we did all the guitars on a demo point of view. Then, when we went into with the musicians, with the band, we would then use different real guitar amps, like the Audio Kitchen stuff and Vox and things like that, and then get you know, try and improve on what we got with the Kemper, by spending a bit more time and customizing it specifically for the song we're working on. And then, you know, analyzing that and then continuing with what we sampled there back in the post-editing and stuff. So it's always it's like a back and forth of evolution of a guitar sound, you know. And I think one of the last things I did was on one song called Untertage, where there's a guitar solo, and there I also used the function of it being a power amp. So I then connected it to this system from the Netherlands called Box of Doom, which is like an isolation system, which is fantastic. So there, you know, we used every element. We used it purely as a amp simulation. We used it with real speakers, and we used it by analyzing real guitars and using them later. Well, I mean, we've been together 16 years, and one thing we found is, because I'm from Wales, South Wales, which also was built around mining and steel communities. So in a way, we both have a similar experience of these kind of mining towns, and also the pride that people have being from these places. So yeah, it's great. I actually didn't realize they were mining wheels. Well, I can't make those decisions, and you know, obviously guitarists also have incredible personal attachments to their setups, you know, so it's nothing that can be forced on anyone. I think the band was very happy with the results they were getting in the studio. So I think, you know, like everything, it's a possible thing to combine and integrate, because also if you have such specific sounds that you spend a long time creating on a record, to be able to instantly have access to those sounds, you know, which you can't have, because live nowadays, especially the bigger kind of shows, are also, you know, the guitar cabs are underground in boxes or whatever, so there's no ability to really work with ambience or stuff. So you know, to have that access to the original sound that you had that inspired your playing, of course must be attractive, I think. So the way I look at it is, you know, it's also happening in mixing, and it's definitely happening in production, is tighter and tighter costs involved in making records. So you know, in a way, for the same reason that people work more and more in the box when they're mixing, you know, it's down to convenience. And we're at a stage now technologically where I think the quality it's not the same, but it's on some sort of par where you can achieve what you want to achieve without feeling that you've lost something. So I think the same goes in making records, and I think companies like Kemper are kind of on the cutting edge of being able to provide musicians with the quality that they need without feeling that they're kind of losing some kind of connection to the past of guitar playing. Because there is also, with Kemper, what I like very much is this feeling that there's a strong community around it. Lots of people sharing analyses they made of their amps, and there's also some great companies, I think like Amp Factory, where they really spend a long time very carefully detailing different kind of guitar setups, and I think that's great to be a part of those things. And like I said, I don't think one thing suddenly replaces the other, but I think they're definitely two things that can coexist and benefit each other in a way. Yeah, we did a lot of work with the Audio Kitchen Little Chopper amps. They're a great company in Britain that kind of hand make their amps. Again, very passionate about what they do, and kind of learning actually through the Kemper and these companies like Audio Kitchen and Box of Doom that somehow there's such a strong community of guitar makers and players and who are really, really into what they're doing. Which is also the same in all elements of recording studios and all these small boutique companies. But somehow with guitar makers, there's also this element that they're also kind of artisans in carpentry and making, physically, it's a physical product. It's not just circuit boards and things. So, and I think you have to have an understanding of all those things to be able to move forward in the digital world, to represent all that in a good way, And I think I get the feeling that with Kemper, there's the same kind of passion around things. So that's very nice to know. Yeah, well, it's always a thing. It's like also if you use drum samples, at what stage do you treat them like the real thing? So you put them out of multiple outputs, and then you use your EQs and compressions that are not internal in the boxes. You use what you would use on the real thing. So like Trident EQs or whatever compressors you like to use on guitar. So I tend to not touch the equalization processing that's within, say, the Kemper, and I just want the pure signal, and then I will treat it like it's coming out of a real guitar cab, and then treat it in the same way that I would the real thing. And it works great, and you can't really say any more. It's a question of layering, because I think if you exclusively only use modeled things, the end result after layers and layers of sound might not have the same depth of sound as if you use real guitar cabs and stuff. So I think it's always a question of balancing the kind of things of what things are stronger at or not. But I think definitely as a writing tool, there's just no discussion really. For writing, demoing, and then taking it on to another level where you then maybe integrated within more a broader range of instruments and things, then I can't think of a better way to work really. And that's how we all work now in studios. When of course you have your microphones you love, you have the beginning of the chain into your system. You have all the things you like, but in a way, once it's in there, you know, the quality now is so good, and the processing is so, you know, it's so well done. These simulations or emulations that you know, you can work in the box now and not feel that you're losing out to anything, I think. Well, I work on Pro Tools is my main door of choice. I find it the simplest and the quickest to get to what I want to do, which is work in music and sound. As far as software goes, you know, there's so much now. I remember I did an interview like a few years ago, and I was kind of complaining that there's a danger that everything sounds the same because we all use the same plugins, you know. At the time, there was probably not so much choice, but now it's such a proliferation of these things that everyone has their custom setup, you know. Of course, there's certain companies. I love FabFilter. I think they just make such great interfaces, and it's so intuitive again, of course, because you always want intuition and not to be puzzled by what you're working on, because you want to not be pushing knobs and pressing buttons for the sake of it, you know. You want it to be able to make music, so the quicker you can be and more intuitive, then that's always a help. So I love the FabFilter UAD, obviously. Again, you can't. I think there's no discussion that they make such good products. So yeah. Once you're in, well, I do split out to 16 outputs. I have an API modular thing that I've had for quite some time now. But I'm not so, you know, minutely worried that I A/B in the box to splitting it out of 8 or 16 outputs or whatever. I do it because I grew up being told that that's better. So I'm not sure if it is anymore. I know there's plenty of very big world A-list mixers and producers that just do it all internally, you know, because they say, well, you know, if the record companies want to spend 4 weeks to give you a comment, one after the other, every few days someone comments, you know, you can't do physical recall. It's impossible. It would cost millions to make albums. So you know, you have to be able to hit load and your song is there, you know. And like I said, it's good enough that I don't think anyone would listen to a record and say no, it's too digital or something. So I think that we're kind of past that mark in technology now, and I think it'll only get better and better, you know. And also, it doesn't have to be the same as the older equipment, you know, because those things define a sound because maybe they were the first thing. It doesn't mean that is officially, by anyone's standard, the correct sound, you know. There is no such thing, you know, and that's why people can make records. I mean, I've worked with bands sometimes, you know. I try not to get too if something is working, not to play around with it, because it's great. So you know, I've worked with bands that somehow the way they were doing it was so wrong and so bad on a technological level, but you know, it just sounded so great, you know, and so alive. So I don't care if what's right or wrong. It's just what inspires you and what sounds good. So. I think that's the biggest trap that we're facing, is this limitless possibility, you know. And I definitely love limitation. You know, I come from the 80s boom of home recording, where, you know, to have 8 tracks already was quite a step forward, because most people had 4 tracks. So you know, I like that limitation very much, you know. And I just bought a 1-inch 8-track tape machine, which I've integrated with Clasp into our setup. And you know, it's great because you also have to at that point make decisions about what you're doing. But I think, yeah, I always think I would like to, in a way, create within my DAW a template which is that's my setup, you know. So I have maybe always the same EQs, like you would on a real desk. You know, we don't have every preamp being different and every EQ being different, you know. So, and in a way, by being all the same, you're colored by the sound. So if everything is always changing and always different, in a way, you no longer have a sound, you know. So again, it's a combination of things, because I like, you know, I have lots of different preamps that I like to combine, but I think ultimately to be able to have to make decisions and commit to certain things, you know, I think is really important in what you do in music. Because also, I think the way it's heading, you know, I mean, nowadays when I work with some people, when you give them the music, you know, they want all the plugins active, you know. So before, like 5 years ago, if you gave stuff to mixers, they want everything printed, apart from the reverbs and delays. Now they tend to want everything there with all the plugins, so that they can take what was in your mind and where you were at and extend it further, you know. So yeah, it kind of, everything starts to change and in a way be in motion until the last second, you know. Basically now, you used to have to be finished when you were mixing, and in a way now, you have to be finished when you're mastering, because still the mixing is still, it's still the same open book, and it's not that you give them a finished book and then they write their own book. They continue what you were doing in a way. So, but I like definitely, because of that, that's what I'm trying to get to, is at least commit to my sounds and print them, you know, and not give them active plugins and stuff. So, so that, you know, you say, no, this is how it's going to be, now mix it, and not, this is kind of where I'm at and you can still fool around with it or whatever, you know. So I think you have to know, you know, that's the best thing you can do, is know what you want to achieve and not just vaguely have some basic idea, because I think you have to commit, and then it gets a spirit, I think. You now, I think it's more important that you really know what you want to do and why you're doing it, because I think also generally with music, it's become so everywhere, it's so pervasive in all parts of life that you know, it's no longer, it gets to the point where music doesn't need to be treasured anymore, because it's like advertising in a way. It's just sound, and so you have to have a purpose. And I always say that when I work with people, what is there a reason that we're making this record? Like, is there a specific thing you want to say, and not just, well, we're just making it because we make records, you know. You know, of course, we all love making records. It's one of the greatest things you could do in life is to be working with people creating music. It's such a special thing. But I think you need nowadays to have a relevance behind what you're doing. Otherwise, you enter this field of noise, and there you can get lost. So I think you, yeah, with all the options, you need to more and more know where you want to take it to. Yeah, but I think yeah, it is, for me. I see it as a benefit, you know, because I think there's so much. Also, you know, my girlfriend works in theatre. I go to see German theatre and German plays. I don't understand a lot of it, but you know, what I always find is somehow there's so much. If you understand the language, you don't realize how much other messages you're getting without actually understanding the words clearly. So I obviously understand what the singer's singing about, because we sit down and discuss it, and especially with Herbert, we work very closely like that, you know, to the level, because it's a question of trust. You know, you can't do it with everyone, but if you're close and you trust someone, you know, I can really go in there with him, and he says, yeah, so this line, you'll give me a rough translation, you know, so I say, so then we enter a conversation, you know. We might talk, every time we do a song, we might talk for 2 hours or 3 hours about the lyrics. Yeah, but then why do you say this? Then doesn't that mean that you want to do this or that? So, okay. So you'll change a line or word or something, you know. And as a lyric writer, you need this input from your people you trust and your family and stuff. So, you know, I guess you also have to be a filter, because everyone can give you a different opinion, and in the end you're also lost. So you have to be able to take what you think is a good advice or not. But then from that point on, once you trust that the lyrics are all good, then then you can really concentrate on performance and sound. You know, it's such a beautiful thing. You know, I work with so many different bands from different countries, which is another thing that I love. This band is from Latvia, and I was listening last night to some rough mixes, and I was thinking, God, it's quite funny. It sounds like this Brazilian artist I worked with 2 years ago. If you don't know and you just listen to it casually, it sounds like either kind of Brazilian, Portuguese, or Latvian. They sound so similar in the melodies, and I like that. You know, I like just feeling what a person is singing about. You know. Yeah, but I find, well, again, culturally it's interesting because I think in Germany I find that the way records are reviewed and talked about, it's so heavily on the lyrics, and sometimes it annoys me and sometimes it doesn't. But I think you can't, pop music, it's an art that's a complete thing. You can't listen to a song and not listen to the context of the music that's happening around the lyric. It doesn't make any sense. It's like going to an art gallery and complaining about the red that was used in the painting. You can't take elements out because it's one thing. And it's the context of the music against the lyric that gives lyrics a depth. So you can often, if you go to a studio, you see lyrics lying about from the session before, and you look at them and you go, oh my God, these are the most awful lyrics I've ever seen. But you can't judge that until you hear how it works with the music, because it's that's what it's all about. Like Baby I Love You, what was that about? But if you hear it in the music, it has such a feeling to it that it becomes brilliant. So for me, it's pointless. It's like people asking me, is that a good drummer in the band, or is that a good bassist? It's a nonsensical question, because I think it's about the sum of the parts. That's what music's about, and it's the same with musicians. You can't. It's how a person works within the context of other musicians. That's what makes bands good or not good. It's not that they are technically, each person is at a certain ability. It's about how they work, and that's it. That's the art. Exactly. I mean, on this new album, Herbert and me did a lot of the instruments, and we both joke because we're both not great, but somehow it's this not having this technical ability to execute things, so effortlessly that you find other ways to perform. It's about how you put more feeling into it, because every note you play, you make the most out of, and so again, it's like everything. I like using cheap mics and expensive mics. I like using great musicians and self-taught bedroom guys like me. And it's how you mix these things. That's how you make your picture. And and especially with singers, for me, it's not. I hate it when people say, "Oh, that guy can't sing" or whatever, because I think, well, I think this thing of all these TV shows, that somehow what is good singing is some kind of this kind of fake soul type singing. For me, it's so empty. A lot, there's obviously some great people, but to make that the mark of what a good singer is, you know, is weird for me, because I think then you would never had Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra or Herbert or all these great artists, because it's about what they bring to you. It's not that they had technically you know, amazing range or something. It's just that what they had, they could present exactly what they wanted to tell you, you know, and that's the great thing, because it's about finding the special individuals. It's not we're not you know, we're not cookie cutter race of people. Everyone's an individual, and that's what we want to celebrate. Well, it's I find nowadays with production, I very much love when I get the chance to work with a band, rather than more and more. I guess again because of technology, everyone being able to do things. You know, you don't need a band anymore. You can do it all in your bedroom on your own with great sounding instruments and things. So for me, it's a luxury to get to work with a band. You know, I love it so much. But more often than not, you're working with two people or one person or three people, and then you have to be their band. You know, you have to play their drums or play the guitars or basses or whatever. And I think when you have, it's like you know, parallel processing against serial processing. You know, if you're working with one person or there's only two of you or something, you know, your ideas can only happen one idea at a time, you know. But when there's five people playing live together, that's music, you know. It's all influencing everything. And again, it's that thing of a little bit of chaos, you know, which is what makes some records so great. You know, you can try and plan that chaos a little bit when you're working on your own, but live musicians playing together is something that you can't copy on your own. You know, I think that's for me the greatest thing is firstly the relationship of bands. You know, that I'm lucky there's a few bands I work with that have been together for like since they were 5 years old or something. So you're really like working within a family, and yeah, and I think the constant evolution of an idea when there's people together, it happens very quickly, you know. And then your job as a producer is to kind of notice the good things. Oh, that was good. Do that again. But this time try not to do that, you know. So there's that, and yeah, and a lot more. It kind of goes more like this old school view of how American producers were, I guess, that you have to find the talent and develop it and bring it to the marketplace in a way. Whereas, you know, before you used to have, I mean, record companies never call me anymore. I've never had a call from a record company for years. It's the artist directly, because record companies become more like distribution centers, so they have no connection or impact on the records being made. You know, they're taking final products and distributing them. So that's maybe good, you know. It's maybe a good thing.